What's up, YouTubers? This is your boy Big Metroid Fan 12 coming to you with another video game review. And this time I'm reviewing the game G.I. Joe: The Atlantis Factor, and it was released on the NES by Capcom and Kid. And from what I understand, this is a sequel to the previous G.I. Joe game called G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero. And the plot is that Cobra Commander, after his defeat in the previous game, rolls up the island Atlantis, and he's using it as a base to take over the world and all that. And now G.I. Joe is pretty much on a mission to stop him from taking over the world using the powers of Atlantis, you know what I'm saying? Now, it is worth noting that General Hulk, Duke, and Snake Eyes are the three members of G.I. Joe that was in the previous game that returned for this one. And also other members of G.I. Joe are also in this game. Roadblock, Wetsuit, Storm Shadow are the main four that's also playable characters, so that makes it 7 characters overall that's playable from G.I. Joe. However, Gun Ho Spirit and Big Bear will help them by refilling their health or refilling their ammo, but the only way they can do that is you rescue them in some side missions and stuff like that. Now, with this particular game, you pretty much start off with General Hawk. As you progress throughout the course of the game, the other playable members of G.I. Joe will pretty much become available, you know what I'm saying? And now when it comes to General Hawk, Roadblock, Duke, and Wetsuit, they can pretty much punch, while Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow use their sword because both of them are pretty much ninjas, you know what I'm saying? Now, whether it's using the sword or hand-to-hand comp or using punches, they can be upgraded up to 4 levels and stuff, you know what I'm saying? And it pretty much collected power icons to do that, you know what I'm saying? And this particular game is pretty similar to um what's that, Bionic Commando, which is another Capcom game, you know what I'm saying? Now, you pretty much start off with like a machine gun, whether you're using say like Duke or General Hawk, but they could be upgraded to like a pulse rifle, laser rifle, and rocket launchers and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? Now, there are less bosses in this game than it is the previous G.I. Joe game, which are I would say there's one less, I think. I would say it's, the bosses are Overkill, Cesspool, Firefly, Major Blood, and Destro and Cobra Commander and stuff like that. So it's pretty similar to the previous G.I. Joe game in that the playable characters and the bosses are the only characters from the G.I. Joe franchise that's in the game, you know what I'm saying? Now, the graphics and level design of G.I. Joe: The Atlantis Factor are pretty good, you know what I'm saying? And again, it has nice color palettes. Now, the color palettes is similar to G.I. Joe: Real American Hero. I think that's because Kid was involved in developing both games, you know what I'm saying? So, if you see the similarities between the color palettes of both games, that's the reason why, you know what I'm saying? Now, the controls and gameplay are pretty solid, you know what I'm saying? I do like the fact that the hand-to-hand combat, regardless if you're using like Duke or Storm Shadow, it can be upgraded, you know what I'm saying? And I like the power-ups too that's in the game, you know what I'm saying? Now, the soundtrack to G.I. Joe: The Atlantis Factor is pretty good, but then again, if you play other Capcom games on the NES, you notice that the soundtrack to those games are pretty good also, you know what I'm saying? Now, the only complaint that I can think of in regards to G.I. Joe, the Atlantis Factor is the difficulty in that it's a little harder than the first G.I. Joe game. Now I'll be honest, G.I. Joe, the Atlantis Factor is a pretty underrated game. You know what I'm saying? It's probably the most underrated game that Capcom has made on any particular console, whether you talk about NES, PlayStation 1, Genesis, or whatever the case. You know, now I can honestly say I could recommend G.I. Joe The Atlantis Factor for anyone who is a G.I. Joe fan or somebody that's a retro gamer. As far as the score is concerned, I definitely give it a 9 out of 10, you know what I'm saying? With that being said, if you like G.I. Joe The Atlantis Factor, you can mention in the comment section of the video if you think it's better than G.I. Joe A Real American Hero or harder than the previous G.I. Joe game. You can pretty much mention that too, you know what I'm saying? Now, if you like this video, don't hesitate to click the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. This is your boy Big Metroid Fan 12 signing off.